11 minutes. That's how long it took Erling Haaland to end Brazil's World Cup, not the whole game. 11 minutes. 2 goals back-to-back. From a team that hadn't even been at this tournament since 1998, a 5-time world champion. Packed with more individual talent than half the remaining bracket combined is out, and the country that did it has 5.5 million people, less than the population of Alabama. That result should not have happened, but it did. And it's forcing a question a lot of people don't want to answer, honestly. Is Norway actually the strongest team left in this World Cup? Not the most famous, not the most decorated, the strongest right now today. To answer that, you have to understand something most casual fans watching this tournament completely missed. Norway didn't get lucky against Brazil. They earned it. And the story of how they got there is stranger and more disciplined than almost anyone realizes. Start with this. Norway's last World Cup appearance was 1998. Bill Clinton was in his second term. Google didn't exist yet. An entire generation of Norwegian fans grew up never once watching their country play in the tournament that defines the sport. Not one World Cup. Not one. So when Norway walked out this summer, most of the football world treated it as a nice story, a nostalgia act, a team that qualified, took a photo, and would go home in the group stage like everyone expected. Here's the twist nobody set up for you. Norway has actually played Brazil at a World Cup before. Once, 1998 group stage, and Norway won that game too, 2-1, which means heading into this year's round of 16 rematch, Norway's all-time record against Brazil at the World Cup was perfect. 1 game, 1 win. They just defended that record 28 years later on a completely different continent. And there's a detail buried in that 1998 squad that changes how you should watch everything else in this video. The manager who took Norway to this World Cup, the man drawing up the tactics, making the substitutions, calling the shots against Brazil, played in that 1998 team. Ståle Solbakken isn't just coaching Norway's return to the World Cup stage. He's finishing a story he started as a player almost 3 decades ago. That's not a coincidence you can script. That's a manager closing a loop most coaches never get the chance to close. Now, if you know one name from this Norway squad, it's obviously Haaland. And there's a family detail here that most highlight packages skip completely. Erling Haaland's father, Alfie Haaland, played for Norway at the 1994 World Cup. That squad reached the round of 16, Norway's best finish at the time, and never got further. 32 years later, his son is finishing what that generation couldn't. And Erling isn't just having a good tournament. He's having one of the great individual runs in recent World Cup history. 7 goals so far, tied at the top of the Golden Boot race with Lionel Messi. He's now scored in 14 straight competitive internationals for Norway, 27 goals in that stretch alone. The last time he failed to score for his country in a competitive match was October 2024, 62 goals in 54 caps. At a World Cup, on the biggest stage that exists, he hasn't slowed down, he's accelerated. So it's tempting to stop the story right there. Norway's good because Haaland's great, simple. Except that explanation has a hole in it, and the hole is big enough to lose a World Cup run in. Here's the uncomfortable question analysts were asking before the tournament even started. What happens to Norway when Haaland gets shut down? Because this isn't a deep squad. Beyond the starting 11, Norway doesn't have the same layer of world-class replacements. If Haaland has an off night, or worse, picks up an injury, there isn't an obvious second superstar waiting to take over the game. Watch the tape from this tournament, and you'll notice how much of Norway's attacking structure is built to feed him. Wide players stretching defenses just to open the exact space he wants to run into. It works. It's worked 4 times in a row now, but it also means opposing coaches have a clear blueprint. Stop Haaland, and you've stopped most of what Norway does going forward. That's the real tension heading into the next round, not whether Norway has a plan, whether the plan survives contact with a team good enough to take away the one thing it depends on. So if this team is genuinely dangerous, the proof can't just be one player. It has to be in the numbers before Holland ever touched the ball at this World Cup. And it is... Go back to qualifying before any of this made headlines, and Norway's campaign is one of the most dominant in their entire history. 8 games played, 8 wins, 37 goals scored, just 5 conceded, 24 points, a perfect record. Somewhere in that run, Norway beat Moldova 11-1. 11, that's not a typo, and it's one of the most lopsided results of the entire qualifying cycle across all of Europe. Then there's the game that actually shaped the whole tournament field. Norway went to the San Siro, Italy's own stadium, and won 4-1. That result didn't just help Norway, it knocked Italy out of automatic qualification entirely, sending one of the sport's greatest football nations into the playoff route. So before a ball was kicked at the actual World Cup, Norway had already produced the best qualifying campaign in their history and taken down one of Europe's giants on the way there. That's not luck. That's a team that was building toward this the entire time. And almost nobody outside Norway was paying attention. So let's go back to the result that started this whole conversation and actually break down what happened, because the way people are describing it online is wrong. A lot of the reaction to Norway 2, Brazil 1 treats it like a smash and grab. Backs against the wall, soak up pressure, nick a couple of goals on the counter. That's not what the match data shows. In the first half, Norway controlled over 65% of possession. 65% against Brazil. Brazil actually generated the better first half chance, an expected goals number of 1.06 to Norway's 0.35, which tells you this wasn't one-way traffic either. It was a genuine tactical battle, and for long stretches, it could have gone either way. What tipped it was 2 things. First, goalkeeper Ørjan Nyland, a keeper currently without a club team, delivering arguably the single best individual performance of the tournament, saving a first-half penalty from Bruno Guimaraes, then producing a reflex stop to deny what looked like a certain own goal. Second, patience. Norway didn't force it. In the 79th minute, Andreas Schjelderup whipped in a cross. Holland rose above Brazil's backline and headed it home. 11 minutes later, he did it again, driving a low strike into the corner from the edge of the box. Neymar pulled one back from the penalty spot in stoppage time. It didn't matter. Brazil, 5-time champions, were out, their earliest World Cup exit since 1990. Norway didn't steal that result. They out-organized, out-defended, and out-finished a team most of the football world still considers untouchable. Here's where this stops being a feel-good story and starts being a legitimate case. Before the tournament, Norway barely registered on the World Cup betting boards, a forgotten name buried near the bottom. After beating Brazil, their odds to win the entire tournament moved to roughly 16-1, the 6th shortest odds of any team left in the competition. Ahead of Colombia, ahead of Morocco, ahead of the United States, the actual host nation's sportsbooks don't move odds out of sentiment. They move them because money is flowing in from people who think Norway is live. When the market that exists specifically to price outcomes accurately starts treating a team like a genuine threat, that's not hype, that's data. From people who lose real money when they're wrong. Which raises the obvious next question. If Norway is this dangerous, who's standing in their way, and can they actually get through? Norway's reward for eliminating Brazil is a quarter-final against England on July 11th in Miami. On paper, England enter as favorites, somewhere between even money and a modest edge, depending on the sportsbook. They've been here before. 3 straight World Cup quarterfinals now, a run they haven't matched since the 1960s. And this quarterfinal has its own storyline built in. Erling Haaland against Harry Kane. 2 of the best center forwards alive on opposite sides, both a single result away from the semifinals. Here's the part that makes this even harder to predict. England and Norway have played 12 times throughout history. And England holds the edge, 7 wins to 3. But none of those meetings have happened in the last 10 years. The current generation of these 2 squads has never faced each other. Whatever happens in Miami will be uncharted territory for both teams. So the question the entire tournament is now asking isn't really about Brazil anymore. It's this: can Norway do it again? Against a team with a deeper bench, a battle-tested knockout run of its own, and a striker just as capable of deciding a game in a single moment? So, is Norway the strongest team left? Honestly? No, not the most likely. France, Argentina, Spain, and England still sit ahead of them on every serious odds board, and there are real reasons for that, squad depth being the biggest one. But most likely to win and most dangerous are not the same question. And on danger, Norway might have the strongest case of anyone left in this tournament. They've already done what none of the favorites have managed. They eliminated a 5-time World Cup champion, not by accident, not by riding one moment of magic, but by outpossessing them, out-organizing them, and finishing when it mattered. They did it with a manager finishing a story he started as a player in the same tournament 28 years ago. And they did it with a forward who is currently doing to World Cup defenses what his father never got the chance to do. Norway might not win this World Cup. But every team left in this bracket now knows exactly what happens if they underestimate this one. So here's the real question, and it's not rhetorical. Saturday in Miami, Haaland faces Kane and Norway faces England. Who do you actually think wins that game? And where does Norway really rank among what's left in this tournament? Drop your answer. Because after what just happened to Brazil, nobody's assumptions are safe anymore.